In the heart of Manila, where streets buzz from sunrise to sundown, lived a 12-year-old boy named Juan Miguel Santos, though everyone simply called him Juan. His home was a small, weathered apartment squeezed between two larger buildings, almost hidden from view unless you knew where to look. Rusted tin roofs covered the structures, and the aroma of street food, fish balls, eye-saw, and barbecue often drifted through the air. Manila was noisy, chaotic, and crowded, but it was also full of life, and it was all Juan had ever known. Inside their tiny home, space was limited. One electric fan kept the air moving, and a single bulb lit their room at night. His parents worked tirelessly to keep their family afloat. His father, Mang Roberto, drove a jeepney with an aging engine that coughed every morning before warming up. His mother, Eling Marait, sold turon and banana queue at a nearby market stall, leaving home before dawn and returning long after sunset. They didn't have much, but they had love. Love that showed in the way they saved leftover coins for Juan's school needs, in the way they made sure he never went to bed hungry, and in the way they encouraged him to dream even if life gave them little room for it. Juan attended the local public school, wearing hand-me-down uniforms that his mother washed and patched repeatedly. He was quiet, polite, and always smiling, but what set him apart from other kids wasn't his grades or his athletic ability, it was his voice. From the age of 7, Juan discovered that singing made him feel alive. It calmed him when his parents argued about bills. It comforted him when hunger gnawed at their stomachs. And somehow, it made the world around him, noisy, uncertain, often overwhelming, feel a little more magical. He practiced anywhere he could: the stairwell, the school corridor, even the small rooftop above their home that overlooked the slums and skyline of Manila. From up there, he watched life unfold. The jeepneys honking, vendors shouting prices, children laughing as they played tumbang preso or hide-and-seek. And he sang above all that, letting his voice float through the humid air. His microphone wasn't really a microphone at all. It was a broken karaoke mic he found at a junk shop and managed to fix using tape and sheer determination. The sound quality was terrible, but to Juan, it was priceless. Neighbors often paused when they walked past and heard him. Some would stand quietly outside the gate, listening to his high notes echoing against the concrete walls. Others would smile and tell his mother, "Your son will go far one day." But dreams cost money. Money the family never had. At night, after dinner, Juan would sit on the floor with his mother as she separated sticks for barbecue or prepared snacks for the next morning. Sometimes she hummed old Filipino love songs while she worked. Other times, she asked Juan to sing for her to ease her fatigue. He always did. His father, though tired from driving all day, would lean back in his wooden chair and close his eyes, saying softly, "Anak, your voice. It's a blessing. Don't ever stop singing." Those words became his fuel. One Sunday afternoon, after choir practice at the church, Juan stood near the entrance singing while waiting for his mother. The sunlight cast a golden glow through the stained glass windows, and his voice filled the space with a purity that made people turn their heads. Among the crowd was a woman named Tita Lori, a volunteer for community talent programs. She watched Juan closely, amazed by his control, his emotion, and the maturity of his tone. When he finished, she approached him warmly. "Your voice is special, Hijo," she said. "Very special." Juan blushed and looked down shyly. "Thank you, Po. Have you ever tried joining bigger competitions?" He shook his head. "We don't really have the budget for travel, Po." Tita Lori paused, thinking deeply. Then she smiled. "What if I told you that you have a chance to audition for America's Got Talent?" Juan froze. AGT, the show he watched on small, shaky YouTube videos, the stage where stars were made. It felt unreal, too big, too far from his world. "My dream," he whispered, "but impossible." "It isn't impossible," she insisted. "Not for someone like you. I know people who can help with paperwork. We can try looking for sponsors. You deserve the chance." The idea stunned him. It scared him. It thrilled him. When he brought the news home, his parents were shocked, worried, and overwhelmed. They had bills piling up. How could they even consider sending their only child abroad? They discussed the matter for days, whispering late into the night while Juan pretended to sleep. Still, they saw the fire in his eyes, the same fire he had every time he sang. One night, his father sat beside him on the rooftop, where stars barely peeked through Manila's smoggy sky. Juan, he said quietly, I want to give you everything, but life didn't give us much. Still, if there's even a small chance that you can reach your dream, just a small one, I don't want to be the one who stops you. Juan threw his arms around him, tears forming instantly. His mother joined them moments later, wiping her eyes. If we can't give you the world, Anak, at least we can help you try to reach it. They borrowed money, accepted help from generous neighbors, and worked double shifts for weeks to gather what they needed. What they lacked in wealth, they made up for in community spirit. People donated clothes, food for the trip, even a small amount of savings. Everyone believed in Juan, maybe even more than he believed in himself. Finally, the day came when they boarded the plane, a moment none of them ever imagined. It was the first time Juan had ever left Manila, the first time he saw clouds from above, and the first time he felt that maybe, just maybe, dreams were meant for kids like him too. As the plane ascended, Juan looked out the window, holding his broken karaoke mic tightly in his backpack. He whispered to himself, "This is for all of us." The AGT auditorium was colder than Juan expected. The bright lights, the towering stage, the enormous screens, everything felt larger than life. Back home, he had only seen bits of this world through tiny cell phone screens at a neighbor's house. But now, standing backstage, hearing the roar of thousands of people, he realized this wasn't a dream. This was real. Too real. Juan's heart raced so fast he could feel it in his throat. He clutched the microphone in both hands, trying to stop them from trembling. Around him, producers hurried back and forth, guiding contestants, adjusting cameras, giving last-minute instructions. Some contestants rehearsed, some prayed, others stood silently, frozen by fear. Juan, small in stature and shy in demeanor, blended into the chaos like a whisper. A producer crouched to his level. "You're up after this performer, sweetheart. Ready?" He nodded, even though his body said otherwise. He closed his eyes for a moment and whispered the same small prayer he said every morning. "Lord, give me strength para kay mama at papa." He imagined his parents sitting in the audience beside Tita Lori, their eyes already glistening with pride. That thought alone steadied him. Then it was time. The backstage curtain lifted. The noise of the crowd poured over him like a tidal wave. A staff member gently nudged him forward. Juan took one step, then another, until he stood in the middle of the AGT stage. The floor was glossy, reflecting the beams of blue and gold light above him. He swallowed hard. Across him sat the judges: Simon Cowell, Heidi Klum, Howie Mandel, and Sofia Vergara. Their faces were familiar from screens, but in person they felt intimidating, larger than the moment. The audience quieted, sensing something fragile and pure about the small boy on stage. Simon leaned forward slightly. "Hello, young man. What's your name?" Juan brought the microphone to his lips and tried to speak, but his voice wavered. My name is Juan." Simon nodded. "Where are you from, Juan?" "From Manila, Philippines, sir." The audience erupted into supportive cheers. Juan blinked at the unexpected encouragement. Simon waited for the noise to settle. "And how old are you?" 12, he answered softly. "Why did you come to America's Got Talent?" Simon's tone became gentler, perhaps sensing the boy's nerves. Juan took a breath that felt deeper than anything he'd taken before. "I came here to help my family," he said, his voice cracking, "and I want to show that dreams can come true, even for someone like me." Silence, not a silence of disinterest, but one of empathy. You could feel the audience leaning in, their hearts already opening. Heidi placed a hand on her chest. Sophia whispered, "Aw," under her breath. Even Howie looked touched. Simon nodded slowly. "All right, Juan, whenever you're ready." The music began. A soft piano intro floated through the speakers, a song of longing and hope. Juan recognized the cue instantly. His cue, his moment. He closed his eyes, and then he sang. The first note that left Juan's lips was gentle, almost timid, like a bird testing its wings, but within seconds his voice settled, strengthened, and blossomed into something stunning. It wasn't just beautiful, it was honest. Every vibrato carried a piece of his story, every breath whispered struggle, every high note shimmered with hope. The entire auditorium stilled. He sang with a maturity and emotion far beyond his years. His small body seemed too fragile to hold such a powerful voice, yet there he was, lifting the room with every word. Heidi's jaw dropped. Sophia covered her mouth. Howie nodded slowly, impressed. But the most captivating reaction was Simon's. At first, he simply listened, expression unreadable. But then his eyebrows rose. His lips parted just slightly. A change softened his usually stern features. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes locked on Juan, as if trying to understand how this child from Manila possessed such depth. Halfway through the song, Juan hit a note so pure, so heartbreakingly clean, that a ripple of emotion swept through the audience like a wave. People gasped, others cried, some held their breath, but Juan didn't see any of that. He was somewhere else, back, on the rooftop in Manila, singing above the sound of jeepneys, back in the small church where sunlight warmed his face, back beside his mother who whispered, "Your voice is a blessing." The music carried him. As he approached the final note, he opened his eyes and looked directly at the judges. That last note, delivered with trembling power, rose high above the auditorium, echoing into every corner of the massive room. The moment the note slipped away, the room erupted. A thunderous, overwhelming applause surged from every seat. People stood instantly, clapping and cheering like the performance had awakened something inside them. Howie clapped above his head. Heidi was already in tears. Sophia wiped her eyes and whispered, "Oh my God, he's amazing." But the camera zoomed in on Simon. He was standing slowly, thoughtfully, eyes still fixed on Juan. His expression was a mixture of admiration and astonishment. It wasn't easy to impress Simon Cowell, but this tiny boy from Manila had just done more than impress him. He had moved him. The applause continued for almost a full minute, but Juan stood frozen, overwhelmed. His chest rose and fell rapidly. His eyes shimmered as if fighting tears. Finally, Simon looked at him and asked, "Juan, how long have you been singing like this?" Juan swallowed hard. Since I was little, sir." Simon shook his head lightly, amazed. "That was extraordinary!" the audience roared, again. Juan's hands trembled. He felt weightless, like he wasn't on a stage anymore, but floating above it. This was the moment he dreamed of, the moment he feared would never come, and it was happening, really happening. The other judges gave him compliments, each more heartfelt than the last, but Juan couldn't absorb any of it. All he knew was that he had poured his entire heart into that performance. Then Simon placed both hands on the judge's desk and leaned forward. The audience felt the shift instantly. Something was coming, a spark in the air, a quiet anticipation. Juan stood motionless, staring at Simon, unaware that his entire life was about to change forever. The applause from Juan's performance was still echoing through the AGT auditorium when Simon Cowell stood up slowly, deliberately. The whole energy of the room shifted. It was as if the air thickened with anticipation. People leaned forward in their seats, phones lifted, hands clasped over mouths. They'd seen this moment before, the prelude to something unforgettable, but never with a child this small, this vulnerable, this astonishing. Juan didn't breathe. The lights glowed warmly around him, reflecting off the gold accents of the stage. He stood there, gripping the microphone with both hands, his entire body trembling. He didn't know what was about to happen, but instinctively, he sensed the gravity of the moment. Simon stepped closer to his microphone. His expression softened, a rare sight, especially toward young contestants. "Juan," he began, his voice steady but full of emotion, "I've been doing this show a very long time, and every once in a while, someone walks onto this stage and reminds us why this show exists." The audience cheered gently, not wanting to break the sincerity of the moment. Simon continued, "Your voice, it's not just beautiful, it's meaningful. It comes from a place of truth. And that," he pointed toward Juan, "is something you can't teach." Juan felt a lump rise in his throat. He tried to smile, but his lips quivered. The camera zoomed in on his wide, tear-brimmed eyes. "You said you came here to help your family," Simon said, "and I want you to know, you've already made them proud. You've made all of us proud." The audience erupted into applause again, but this time it wasn't just appreciation. It was encouragement, love, admiration. Juan's parents, sitting behind the judges, sobbed openly. His mother covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face, while his father held her hand tightly, his own eyes glassy. They could hardly believe that their son, the boy who sang barefoot on their rooftop, was now standing on one of the biggest stages in the world, being praised by Simon Cowell. As the applause softened, a hush fell over the auditorium. Simon looked down at the shiny golden button in front of him. Juan's heart stopped. The audience felt it too. A collective gasp swept through the room. People began chanting softly, "Golden Buzzer! Golden Buzzer!" The chant grew louder, building like a wave. Juan stood frozen, chest rising and falling rapidly. His mind raced. Is this really happening? His fingers tightened around the microphone. He looked at Simon, then at his parents, then back at Simon. His entire future felt suspended in the space between moments. Simon took one step forward. "You know what, Juan?" he said softly. "Time slowed. This is one of those moments I'll remember for the rest of my life." The audience screamed even before his hand touched the desk. Boom! Simon slammed the golden buzzer. The sound echoed like a thunderclap. Instantly, the AGT stage exploded into a shower of shimmering golden confetti. It poured from the rafters, swirling around Juan like a storm of light. Juan gasped, hands flying to his face as the first pieces of gold touched his cheeks. His knees weakened, and he dropped to the floor, overwhelmed. Tears streamed down uncontrollably, soaking his sleeves as he tried to process what was happening. The crowd leapt to their feet. People screamed, clapped, cried. The energy was electric, raw, breathtaking, unforgettable. Up at the judges' table, Heidi jumped up and clapped through her tears. Sophia covered her heart with both hands, her voice cracking as she said, "He deserves it!" Howie nodded vigorously, beaming with pride. Simon stepped onto the stage himself, something he only did for performers who truly moved him. As he approached Juan, the confetti sparkled around him like falling stars. Juan's mother ran out from the audience, breaking into a sprint the moment she saw her son collapse to his knees. She wrapped him in the tightest embrace, crying into his shoulder. His father followed close behind, kneeling beside them, hands on his son's back, whispering through tears, "Anik, we're so proud of you, so proud." Simon waited respectfully until the family pulled apart slightly. Then he crouched down beside Juan and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Juan," he said softly, almost fatherly, "you didn't just sing. You touched every single person in this room. That's a gift, a real gift." Juan tried to speak, but the words got stuck in his throat. He choked on a sob and instead whispered, "Thank you, sir, thank you." Simon smiled warmly. "No, thank you." The studio cameras captured every second. The tears, the confetti, the smiles, the overwhelming emotion radiating from the stage. This was the kind of moment AGT would replay over and over again. The moment a boy from Manila proved that greatness could grow from anywhere, even from the smallest home in the busiest streets of the Philippines. As the confetti slowly settled, the lights shifted to gold, bathing the entire stage in a warm glow that made the moment feel even more magical. The orchestra played a triumphant melody as Juan stood shakily, holding on to his parents. A backstage crew member approached and said kindly, "Juan, you did it. You're going straight to the live shows." He nodded through tears, still barely able to speak. His mother kissed his forehead. His father placed an arm around his shoulder. And Juan, shaking, overwhelmed, and glowing with joy, whispered, "This is for you, Mama. Papa, this is for Manila." The crowd cheered again. It was a moment that would travel across the world, shared on social media, replayed millions of times, touching hearts everywhere. News outlets would talk about the Filipino boy who stole America's heart. Reaction videos would flood YouTube. Families would gather around their screens to re-watch the moment Simon Cowell hit the golden buzzer for him, and Juan, still clutching the broken microphone he had brought from home, knew deep inside that his life had changed forever.